Whether through her comedy, motivational speaking, or writings, Molly Groats hopes to inspire women of all ages to have a positive outlook on their lives. Her goal is for audiences to change perspective to the positive, make wise choices, and learn to laugh through anything. She especially encourages women to make goals for themselves and to always have an attitude of gratitude.
I'm a Southern girl from the country, and admittedly, growing up I wasn't exposed to very much, but like a lot of girls from the South, I had big dreams of going somewhere and getting out of there. And luckily, I met a Marine at a fish fry. He seduced me on that first meeting with all his random statistics about the Marine Corps. And pretty soon after that, I fell in love. And pretty soon after that, he received orders to go to the West Coast. So he figured that it was probably about the right time to ask me to leave my family, my friends, my career, so that I could follow him across the country to the West Coast, where he would leave me all the time to go on a bunch of deployments. So I know what you're thinking, but let me tell you, he said the most convincing things to get me to marry him, like, baby, you can have all the closet space because I wear the same thing every day. And he assured me, he said, sweetheart, I'll never get on your nerves because I'll always be gone. So we eloped. And I can honestly tell you, standing here today, that I was 100% committed at that time in my life in supporting that man and supporting our country. But what I wasn't honest with myself about was the fact that all those life changes were gonna kind of turn me over topsy-turvy. And I had to admit that to myself. All of a sudden, I'm living on the West Coast where nothing was familiar to me. Didn't like the weather here, didn't like the food here, certainly didn't like y'all's traffic. More than that, I was living on a military base. For those of you who've never been on a military base or you don't live on base housing, it's helicopters overhead all night, tanks passing you in the road, and bombs going off all the time, and all these guys running around with guns, grunting all the time. And my husband was right. He was never there. And pretty soon, I found out that my daily routine was to sleep in as late as possible, get up, watch the Lifetime movie network for women, cry all day long because I had no one to talk to, and think to myself, what have I gotten myself into? I'd realized that in such a short time, when my husband met me, I was the life of the party. I had goals, I had ambitions, I was thriving, I was enjoying everything. And in this 2 short-week period of time, I had no friends, no hobby, no interest, and no life. I wasn't myself. And then I had to get more honest with myself when I realized, you know what? The truth is I only have one problem, and it's my attitude. Because let's be honest right now, if you don't have the right attitude and perspective, being a military wife can be the most unfamiliar, disconcerting, scariest time in your life. And I had to stop seeing all these problems in my life and start seeing opportunities. My grandma Ruby and me share a lot of similarities. I make a joke that I learned all my best manipulation skills from her. But like Grandma Ruby was like me, and she found herself after college married into the military, and also in a very unfamiliar circumstance. But unlike me, Grandma Ruby thrived. She went from a small town girl from Virginia to living and working in New York City and riding the subway every day. When my Grandma Ruby used to talk about her life as a military wife, it was like an adventure, you know? She would tell stories about living all over the world. I often, as a military wife, would call Grandma Ruby for advice, and I would say to her, you know, Grandma, John's coming home from deployment. What do I look out for? And she'd say, now, darling, I want you to look out for that reunion surprise. And I said, Grandma, is that something that John's going to bring me back from deployment? And she said, well, not quite. It's more like the gift you're going to give him after he's been home for about 9 months. So, she's a little bit sassy like me. She had a great sense of humor. And I just thought to myself, my God, this woman did this journey 50 years before me without cell phones, without email. And I can do it too. So what I started to do is I started to look for other women that were like Grandma Ruby, women that were not using the excuse of, well, my husband's deployed, so I can't. My husband's in the military, so I can't. These women actually used that to their advantage and took the opportunities the military offered them. They were going back to school. They were starting their own businesses. One of them was running marathons. Some of them were learning how to surf. And so what I did is I surrounded myself with as many women like my Grandma Ruby as possible so that I could catch on to that positive attitude. And by hanging around with those dynamic women that were thriving, I got my passion back as well. So we got really honest with ourselves earlier when we were working with our handouts, and we talked about finding when we were being negative characters, when we were responding in the negative to the lifestyle. And we looked at our handouts and we found ourselves. And how many of you can be honest that not only did you find yourself, you might have found a couple people that you knew in there? So what do you do when you're in a position where you've done it, you've got the right attitude, you've got the right perspective, and you're making the right choices in your life, but there's a negative character in your life that you have to be around? Maybe you work with this person, maybe it's your neighbor, maybe they work with your husband, so you've got to be nice, maybe they're even in your family. And I don't know what it is about this person, but they drive you nuts. Do you know who I'm talking about right now? So I'm going to try to help you with that, and I'm going to try to give you a technique. So if you could do this with me, close your eyes, and I want you to think specifically about that person and what they specifically do to upset you. See, here's the thing. Let's talk about anger. Keep your eyes shut. Keep thinking. Anger is an emotion, but we respond physically to it. And I see some of you, your faces are red, I can tell your heart is beating, it's harder to breathe, your breath is tight, your whole body is tense. Go ahead and open your eyes. That is no way to be. I don't know about you guys, but if I knew that I had to see this particular person, even anticipating seeing them, I was just like, ah! I couldn't stand it. You feel like that, and it just ruins your whole day. I hate that. So I want to try something else. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to think about the most embarrassing thing you've ever done. See, I can see that some of you are smiling. You're even laughing and nodding to yourself. Go ahead and open your eyes. When you laugh at something, your body responds in the total opposite way of when it's angry. You're smiling. Everything is loose. You're breathing. And the best thing is you're releasing endorphins, which is healthy for you. So I have a technique where I can actually teach you how to change your physical and mental reaction to these people by specifically pinpointing what they do. So that from now on, when you go into that meeting with them or when you are in the situation with them, they're not going to control you anymore. You're not going to let them have your anger. You're going to actually own it, and you're actually going to release endorphins. You're going to love this. Get your handouts back out. You're going to love this technique so much you're going to use it when your husband comes home from work. You know, when he comes in, he throws his pack down, he kicks his dirty boots off his utilities, he sits on the couch and he turns on SportsCenter and you want to wring his neck because he hasn't asked you to help yet. But you're going to love it because I'm going to teach you no longer to be mad. You're going to be laughing.